Good morning to everyone, and welcome to this lecture. This conference, titled Coastal Territories 2050, is dedicated to the future of coastal areas, set against a backdrop of profound climatic, social, and environmental changes. Through a series of international presentations, we will explore innovative and sustainable strategies to adapt and transform these vulnerable territories. Below are the main topics that will be addressed. 1. The frame of the research and themes. 2. Climate adaptation and amphibious architecture, Bandon Bay, Thailand. 3. Floating city and reversible infrastructures, Rotterdam, Netherlands. 4. City in transition, Trapani and Palermo, Italy. 5. Conclusions. Today, coastal cities are threshold territories, simultaneously spaces of urban and environmental density, zones of transit and permanence, of risk and opportunity. These are places where global crises, such as sea level rise, biodiversity loss, and resource scarcity, intersect with local challenges related to urban regeneration, food production, tourism, and mobility. In this context, the conference presents strategies and projects for adaptation and transformation, addressing key themes at the heart of global tensions that question how we inhabit the world: climate change and sea level rise, coastal erosion, extreme weather events, coastal urban regeneration, new hybrid infrastructures, architectural adaptation and resilience, conscious tourism, local production, and food security. Intervention in contemporary territories and cities cannot be limited to repairing damage or mitigating risks. It must anticipate transformations, generate resilient models, and propose new forms of living and producing that can adapt to evolving environmental conditions. The 3 case studies presented today put forward architectural, urban, and infrastructural strategies that address these issues in concrete, experimental, and site-specific ways. The conference focuses on 3 core thematic areas, each illustrated by emblematic case studies located in geographically distant places, yet united by a shared condition of possible transition between land and water, between center and periphery, between infrastructure and landscape, between vulnerability and opportunity. 1. Climate adaptation and amphibious architecture. The rise in global temperatures and sea levels raises fundamental questions about the habitability of our territories. How can we design in unstable environments, balanced between land and water? The proposal developed for Bandon Bay in southern Thailand introduces the concept of amphibious architecture as a concrete and adaptive response to a vulnerable context, blending spaces for food production, local economy, and new forms of social interaction. 2. Floating city and reversible infrastructures. In European cities, decommissioned or transitioning port areas offer opportunities to rethink the relationship between the city and the sea. The project for the floating city in Rotterdam proposes floating, flexible, and temporary solutions capable of mediating between new urban needs and environmental transformations, promoting sustainable, inclusive, and resilient forms of regeneration. 3. Urban transition and new centralities. The cities of Trapani and Palermo provide a starting point for reflecting on dynamics of obsolescence, reuse, and infrastructuring. In particular, the focus is on metropolitan mobility, connections between port and city, and the enhancement of residual spaces, proposing solutions that combine public functions, scientific research, and conscious tourism. The goal is to redefine the coastal edge not as a boundary, but as an active interface between nature and the city. Thailand 2022 Plug-in System. Sharing Farm in Don Sak. Climate change refers to variations in temperature directly or indirectly attributed to human activities. The effects connected to the hyperbolic rise of temperature are multiple, from the rise of seawater to extreme weather events to the reduction in the world's food stock. In the south of Thailand, the climate and water of the estuaries have been drastically transformed over the last few decades. Surat Thani has become an outstanding urban and industrial center. In this place, strongly characterized by irreversible natural and anthropic phenomena, the thesis identifies a project area on the island of Koh Rait Ban, which is about 500 meters from the coast. The presence of a bridge connecting to the peninsula has led to the gradual creation of the urban habitat and the fishing community, which has gradually established itself in these places, exploiting the lush fauna of the Bay of Bandon Bay. This project is the final outcome of a thesis that originated during the 2016 workshop, Amphibious Architecture, held at the Escuela Técnica Superior de Arquitectura de Madrid, as a potential field of research for an architecture capable of adapting to the changing nature of coastlines. This theme was explored at the international conference IKA 2015 in Bangkok, where the term amphibious architecture was defined as a design strategy to cope with floods using light and temporary structures capable of floating during unexpected flooding events. Rather than resisting the natural cycles of flooding, the project seeks to adapt to natural phenomena by synchronizing human activities with natural ones. The following video shows the current state of this area, Surat Thani Province, in southern Thailand, which consists of 49% high mountain ranges and the rest muddy plains. Surat Thani is a unique territory for experimentation due to the presence of tidal flows along the coast, which compel residents to adapt to these coastal phenomena. Along the 100 kilometers of the lower Gulf of Thailand, the Tapi and Phum Duang rivers flow into the sea. Their convergence with saltwater creates the ideal conditions for mangrove growth and supports a rich ecosystem of wildlife between the coastline and the estuary. Tidal flows are prominent in this region, shaping the biophysical and hydraulic structure of the lower Gulf and encouraging sedimentation, resulting in water depths ranging from 1 to 5 meters. Over the past few decades, the climate and estuarine waters have been drastically transformed. Surat Thani has become a major urban and industrial center in southern Thailand.
We visited local villages and we also visited the industry, fishing villages. I would say lifestyle and way of life and the way they work, everything is linked to the water. The time frame is continuous. It's really an amphibious architecture. You have to be careful how you treat tourism. Risks.
We have to think about how are we going to manage the new way of life.
City and village.
Balance. Conscious. A benefit of that.
Market. It's a part of the Thailand economy.
Nowadays, tourism is not a problem.
We have seen a lot of plastic bags.
Pollution could be a problem.
I think it's difficult. Petroleum industry.
So, nevertheless, they live in community.
It depends on the tidal changes and the climate, so I think it's difficult.
The infrastructure was the water.
We are going to build always. If you don't do it, another person is gonna do it. Avoid to have these situations.
How is this process working in Surat Thani?
Natural, this ecosystem.
There is very short distance from the provider to the customers.
The waterscape itself limits
Mix between the traditional living and the tourist living.
by creating new products.
To preserve the traditional way of life of the people.
To maintain the protected areas, to protect this place.
Together works for sustainability.
Can create some physical structures that can help cleaning the water.
Be careful.
We can't lose virtuous circle.
We as architects, we should take more care about what we are building.
Respect a lot nature. Nature, conscious.
Community life.
Environmental respect.
Responsibility.
Traditional way of life.
Privacy. The law. Laws. A lot of rabbits in the
Wall.
The water, the research.
Cette détente profonde qui apaise votre mental et recharge vos batteries nerveuses.
In southern Thailand, the climate and estuarine waters have been drastically transformed over the past few decades. Surat Thani has become a prominent urban and industrial center. Within this area, strongly marked by irreversible natural and human phenomena, the project site has been identified on the island of Koh Rait Ban, located about 500 meters from the coast. The presence of a bridge connecting it to the mainland has contributed to the gradual development of the urban habitat and a fishing community, which has progressively taken root in the area by taking advantage of the lush fauna of Ban Don Bay. In response to increasing climate instability, the project aims to propose not only an architectural intervention, but also a model of circular economy, microproduction, and food self-sufficiency involving local communities and enhancing traditional fishing practices. In Thailand, aquaculture is a widely practiced activity, especially in the southern regions, where the presence of mangrove tree species, particularly in coastal areas and near river estuaries, favors both the formation of micro and macro habitats that make the waters rich in nutrients and the mitigation of flood risk. These are just some of the themes explored in this thesis, which, starting from the effects of climate on the physical and human environment, also seeks to address issues related to the economic and tourism systems of these areas, places heavily subjected to a mass Western tourism that is often disrespectful of local communities and their territories. It is precisely the process of tourism exploitation over recent decades that has allowed Thailand to triple its tourist numbers, based on mass consumption not only along the coastlines, but also in major cities. However, it is clear that today it is impossible to forgo the significant opportunities for economic growth, even at the risk of the peninsula's entire marine ecosystem. Recent scientific publications have confirmed that one of the main causes of the destruction of entire coral atolls is the reckless and irresponsible tourism of recent decades. The issue of economic responsibility is one of the key strengths of this thesis, which aims to broaden its field of investigation well beyond the discipline of architecture, engaging with major ecological, environmental, and economic themes that must be understood in order to explore the formal aspects of the transformations that can be proposed for these areas. The presence of a bridge connecting the peninsula has prompted interaction with the habitat and with the fishing community that has gradually settled in the area, taking advantage of the rich fauna of Ban Don Bay. Specifically, this thesis proposes the design of a sustainable zero-kilometer market, which uses local products by producing and consuming them on site. The main focus is the hybridization of market spaces, public use, and living. The goal is to bring together activities and flexible spaces that can be used continuously throughout the day and across seasons. The critique of the massive exploitation of the coastline and rapid urbanization, which have led to the destruction of mangrove territories, the extinction of certain marine species, and the erosion of parts of the shoreline, frames the urgent context in which immediate action is needed, each contributing with their specific expertise. Bandon Bay is now faced with the ongoing depletion of its marine resources, the economic exploitation of fishing, and severe pollution. Current urban development, especially along the coast, also disregards the natural tidal cycles, putting local populations at further risk. Some questions aim to reflect on the possible future of these areas, which will soon be affected by the irreversible consequences of human and climate changes. What scenarios lie ahead for Bandon Bay? What economic prospects will there be for its inhabitants? Could the occupation of the water's surface become a moment of transition rather than a fixed frontier? The project proposes the use of materials sourced from local traditions, selected primarily based on their intended use. Two types of materials are used for the floating surface. The first, intended for modest areas, involves the use of recycled plastic bottles wrapped in fishing nets. The second, used for the construction of piers and docks, involves the use of floating plastic blocks. The design of the various structures was developed to be built with bamboo canes, Dendrocalamus strictus, which are easily found in this region. Galvanized steel was considered for selective use to reinforce the structural joints. The roofing is designed using natural, lightweight, multi-layered materials capable of providing adequate ventilation and rainwater collection. Additionally, some systems include a pulley mechanism that allows parts of the structure to move, ensuring proper shading. The proposed activities for this area include aquaculture, fish processing, and sales. Each activity defines dedicated spaces for its related operations. The participants identified for carrying out these activities are, on one side, the local inhabitants, and on the other, tourists. The thesis aims to link tourism activities with the traditional practices of local communities through an economic process that respects the rhythms and customs of the place. Therefore, the sale of seafood is considered a primary activity and economic resource. Oysters, Sacastria commercialis, Crassostria lugubris, Crassostria belcheri, mussels, Perna viridis, and shrimp, Peneus monodon, Letopeneus vanami, are the main resources for exchange with tourists. The cultivation methods refer to traditional techniques such as bottom culture for oysters and longline culture for mussels. Additional activities are planned: fish processing and sales. A designated space is provided for processing, where oysters and mussels must be separated and purified. The sales activity includes market spaces that are organized according to the operations carried out and the types of products offered, which can not only be sold but also cooked on site. The market can function as either a permanent or a temporary installation. Among the main themes is the idea of producing and consuming seafood at 0 kilometers, km and 0. The benefits of KM0 are primarily related to the reduction of long-distance transportation of seafood and the support of sales networks located close to the production sites. Other advantages include the reduction of product costs, since the absence of intermediaries between production and sale allows for fairer pricing. It should also be noted that short supply chain products are fresher and of higher quality, avoiding the need for pre-packaging and treatments required for long-distance transportation and storage. The consistent use of traditional techniques allows for an appreciation of both the products and the local culture that defines them. There are 3 strategies that aim to address environmental change: soft innovation, soft data, and soft urbanism. Soft innovation refers to those flexible or soft strategies that explore research fields adjacent to architecture and are still in an experimental phase, such as water purification systems designed to clean the oceans from large-scale plastic pollution or to decontaminate water surfaces from diverse and non-homogeneous materials. Soft data refers to data that carry a high degree of approximation, such as sea level and tidal fluctuations, external atmospheric agents, and climate conditions. Soft urbanism refers to a system's ability to adapt and respond to sudden changes caused by external factors beyond the system's control. The strategies of the plug-in and the soft system have been tested on the existing bridge that connects the island of Kon Ben Rat with the province of Surat Thani, serving as the backbone of the new settlement principle. The bridge retains its current function as a connector, narrowing in the sections designated for pedestrian and two-wheeled vehicle traffic. Taking into account the depth of the seabed, tidal fluctuations, and the bridge's own structural section, the project proposes the implementation of 3 types of aquaculture. The first involves oysters, in seabeds ranging from 0 to 1.5 meters deep. The second involves mussels, in depths from 1.5 to 2.5 meters. The third is for shrimp, which require deeper waters. A natural filtering system using mangroves, along with an artificial system employing newly tested phytodepuration techniques, allows for the efficient use of marine currents that pass along the coast and flow directly beneath the bridge with higher intensity. Each aquaculture type corresponds to a distinct architectural typology that enables the repeated processes of harvesting, processing, and selling the seafood. Aggregation, intersection, juxtaposition, and superposition are the structuring principles of the entire project, which is physically supported by the pre-existing reinforced concrete bridge. This bridge serves as the structural backbone for a new, ephemeral imaginary that takes place on this artificial ground. All new permanent and temporary buildings related to the production and sale of seafood are anchored to the inhabited bridge, which acts as the spine of the plug-in system. There are 3 main plug-ins in the project. 1, the aquaculture systems, which develop linearly to the left of the bridge. 2, the storage, processing, and sales spaces, which are located above, below, or alongside the bridge. 3, circulation routes, which include at least 2 types of paths, one direct and fast, and one slow and articulated. The amphibious construction is based on a flotation system with vertical guides that allow the building to rise or lower according to changes in the water level. Hybrid conditions are also considered, such as a structure partially supported both by the seabed and the water. Another possible solution involves waterproofing the ground floor during the dry season and the upper floor during flooding periods. To address the abnormal rise in sea levels and to provide protection against potential flooding, 3 architectural devices have been designed: floating, elevated, and amphibious structures. The mussel farming system is arranged perpendicular to the bridge with 1 collection point for every 8 farming points. The first structure is floating, used for harvesting during low tide and capable of rising with the water level during high tide. The second structure is elevated, where the catch is processed and consumed at the bridge level. Raising this structure above the crossing level allows pedestrian circulation to be separated from vehicular traffic and incorporates a floating base that accommodates the abnormal rise in sea level. A third amphibious structure, located on a section of the existing bridge, follows tidal fluctuations through 2 rails that enable the ground to move up and down. All 3 systems are covered with a roof made of semi-bamboo canes, designed to channel and collect rainwater, inspired by the traditional roofing techniques of local houses. Along the opposite shore of the bridge, the oyster farming is developed. Adjacent to it are located the new temporary and permanent markets. The structure designed for this area consists of a canopy that provides shade for the market where oysters are sold. This canopy is lightweight and waterproof, made from a natural woven palm leaf fabric. Taking advantage of the tidal movement, oyster harvesting is carried out using special floating containers that, during high tide, rise to the level of the bridge to facilitate sales. The market activity takes place in the presence of tourists who observe the entire process of seafood production and sale using traditional techniques. The adaptability strategy focuses not only on the theme of living, but also on production through aquaculture to support the nutritional and economic needs of the inhabitants. The rediscovery of local cultures and traditions enables the communities living in these areas to utilize water as a resource, both with and on the water, engaging in activities that aim to maintain an active relationship between humans and nature. Traditional aquaculture techniques are combined with a construction typology that allows repeated harvesting, processing, and selling of seafood, bringing conscious tourists closer to these places and promoting a sustainable form of consumption that showcases the production process aimed at supporting the local microeconomy. Floating City, Rotterdam 2030. The case of Rotterdam is set in the heart of Europe, within a highly developed urban and infrastructural context that is nevertheless constantly threatened by hydrogeological vulnerability. Here, in the historic port of Rijnhaven, the research addresses the need to intervene in a strategic area of the city through temporary, adaptable, and above all, floating solutions. The Floating City project proposes a new pedestrian urban infrastructure on water, designed for citizens, a floating, flexible, and reversible network of walkways that hosts public functions and collective spaces. It aims to bridge the gap between the historic neighborhoods of Rotterdam Zuid and the densely built-up area of Wilhelmina Pier. In Rotterdam, water is not only a threat, but also a design resource, a foundation for creating new public spaces, collective functions, and connections between the city's uneven parts. The challenge is to implement reversible, sustainable, and adaptive solutions capable of supporting the city's climatic and urban transformation over time. Since 2006, the municipality of Rotterdam has initiated a reflection on the sustainable development of the city through an agenda of interventions to be implemented by 2050. Rotterdam aims to transform itself into a highly attractive city, both residentially and financially, through targeted operations focused on improving and regenerating specific urban areas, particularly along the waterfront. These large-scale territorial strategies, which also seek to address social imbalances, are outlined in the Rotterdam Stadvisie 2007 document. 1. The creation of a new skyline to give the city a renewed identity. 2. Developing the port area to establish Rotterdam as an international metropolis. 3. Equipping the city with an adequate system to manage flood and groundwater rise in order to combat the relentless phenomenon of rising water levels. In the southern part of Rotterdam, historically home to migrant communities and port workers, a gradual socio-economic decline took hold over time, exacerbated by rising marginalization and unemployment. In response to this growing crisis, the municipal government launched a structural intervention through the Pact op Zuid, an ambitious urban regeneration program based on joint investments from both the public and private sectors. The initiative pursued a dual objective. On the one hand, to attract new residents, including middle-class and professional groups. On the other, to promote the development of high-quality urban projects capable of improving both the social fabric and the environmental conditions of the area. The origins of this transformation can be traced back to the conversion of former port areas south of the Nieuwe Maas River, in what would later become known as Kop van Zuid. As traditional port functions were phased out and new urban development policies were introduced, the first residential settlements began to emerge in the area. However, contrary to expectations, it was not the Dutch citizens of Rotterdam who moved en masse into these new neighborhoods, but rather immigrants from former colonies. Drawn by the employment opportunities provided by the port, they found work primarily in low-skilled manual labor. These migration dynamics played a decisive role in shaping the sociocultural profile of the district, turning it into a multicultural crossroads, but also a territory marked by deep social inequalities and persistent challenges. In the 1980s, a design competition was launched for the development of a master plan aimed at the regeneration of the Kop van Zuid area. 4 architects were invited to present their design visions: Aldo Rossi, Oswald Matthias Ungers, Stuart Walker, and Joseph Paul Kleihuis. A common thread in all the proposals was the influence of Karel Weber's Paperclip project, particularly in the effort to integrate the monumental scale of the port with the residential fabric through the placement of large-scale buildings along the waterfront. In 1987, Riek Bakker, then director of the Department of Urban Development for the city of Rotterdam, endorsed the adoption of a master plan developed by Toon Koolhaas for the transformation of the southern riverfront. The plan aimed to overcome the historical isolation of Kaap van Zuid, raising its urban quality to a level equal to, or even surpassing, that of the northern part of the city. Its key objectives included the creation of a wide boulevard and a new bridge to extend the cool single-axis southward, the construction of tall buildings along the quay, echoing the original port scale, and the development of green pedestrian pathways to reconnect urban parks with the city's various neighborhoods, thus promoting greater spatial and social integration. The project seeks to enhance the inherent qualities of the area without disrupting the existing relationship between land and water. On the contrary, it reinforces those elements that have shaped the port landscape and the spatial organization of the site for nearly 2 centuries. A key feature of the settlement strategy is its long-term flexibility, the ability to adapt to the evolving needs of the community by accommodating diverse functions and encouraging dynamic use of space. In particular, the introduction of recreational activities within an innovative and experimental framework aims to stimulate pedestrian movement and offer new gathering spaces. These include public meeting areas situated directly within the waterfront basin of the Port Bay. The project also envisions a network of pedestrian pathways that extend from strategic points in the surrounding neighborhoods and converge at the heart of Rijnhaven, where the main activities and services are concentrated. To this end, several key nodes have been identified as anchor points for a system of floating walkways designed to enhance accessibility and strengthen the physical and social connection between different parts of the city. 4 paths converge and merge over the water, forming a network of pedestrian and cycling walkways equipped with urban furniture and rest areas. Along this network, recreational and leisure activities are distributed into 3 main categories, structured according to the seasons. On the southern quay, a detached pier accommodates urban gardens, greenhouses, and support spaces for agricultural activities, designed to engage families and local communities with a capacity of around 100 people. Along the central road, temporary floating modules house neighborhood services, while near the quay, sports facilities are positioned to support both summer and winter activities. The route culminates in a floating theater designed to host musical events and theatrical performances. This structure is completed by a panoramic terrace overlooking the water, conceived as the final highlight of the path and a contemplative public space. The thesis project proposes a flexible and temporary approach to the regeneration of Rotterdam's disused port areas, aiming to reactivate them through lightweight floating infrastructures and seasonal activities. The intervention seeks to strengthen connections between the 2 sides of the city, promote new relationships between citizens and water, and create spaces for gathering and social interaction. The reversibility of the structures ensures environmental respect for the port context and greater adaptability to climate change. The project acts as a transitional element between the city center and the historic neighborhoods of Rotterdam Zuid, contributing to the reduction of urban and social disparities. In the context of the profound transformations taking place in European cities, the themes of sustainability and urban regeneration have assumed an increasingly central role. Today, attention is focused on design processes aimed at revitalizing the consolidated urban fabric and redeveloping degraded or obsolete coastal areas. Within this framework, urban and architectural design acts as a mediator between the existing reality and an unstoppable process of transformation characteristic of cities in transition. This process, with its opportunities and challenges, seeks to strike a balance between the creation of new spaces and the conscious reuse of the existing built environment. In this perspective, 2 projects are presented, one developed in the port area and salt flats of Trapani, and the other in the port area of Palermo. Both projects engage directly with the coastline and the sea, foundational and generative elements from which to address the issue of urban obsolescence, a condition shared by many European cities, yet capable of offering valuable opportunities for design experimentation. City in Transition, Trapani 2020. In the face of the profound social, economic, cultural, and climatic changes that have impacted European cities over the past decade, the urgent need to radically rethink how cities are organized and transformed has become increasingly evident. Today's challenges call for a redefinition of urban transformation models, steering design interventions toward principles of sustainability, resilience, and inclusion. Within this context, the concept of the city in transition emerges with increasing strength, reshaping the approach to transforming existing and vulnerable territories. The focus shifts from the mere expansion of the built environment to its sustainable reconversion, with particular attention to marginal areas, often port or industrial zones, that have become obsolete or degraded due to the processes of deindustrialization experienced in recent decades. It is within this framework that the project in the city of Trapani is situated. The city's unique morphological configuration and its strategic position at the heart of the Mediterranean have historically fostered a deep and enduring relationship with the sea, one that has significantly shaped its urban structure and economic development. The port system, a key infrastructural and identity-forming element, now represents a critical area in need of rethinking, not only in functional terms, but above all as an opportunity to redefine the relationship between city, landscape, and environment. The project aims to propose a new vision for the large, disused Asolela dock, envisioned as a strategic site capable of hosting activities related to marine scientific research, environmental experimentation, and the enhancement of local natural resources. In this perspective, the intervention is conceived as a connective device between the city's western urban edge and the expansive open space of the Salt Pan Park, fostering integration between ecological systems, public space, and new forms of knowledge production. In 2005, the city of Trapani experienced a significant phase of urban revitalization thanks to numerous restoration initiatives, which culminated in the preparation and organization of the international sporting event Trapani Louis Vuitton Acts 8 and 9. On the occasion of this major event linked to the America's Cup, Trapani benefited from a series of port redevelopment projects aimed at improving the functionality and accessibility of its waterfront, particularly targeting port areas that had fallen into severe decay and were inadequate to meet new urban and tourist demands. The interventions carried out during this period involved a comprehensive reorganization of the port infrastructure, including significant architectural transformations, the repurposing of passenger docks, and the removal of visual barriers that had limited the direct connection between the city and the sea. These efforts contributed to restoring the waterfront of Trapani as a new urban focal point, enhancing its accessibility and spatial quality, and fostering a renewed relationship between the city and its quintessential identity element, the sea. Continuing along this development path, in August 2014, a group of local operators and entrepreneurs formalized the establishment of the new consortium of the Port of Trapani, a cooperative consortium company with limited liability. The founding act sets forth, among the consortium's primary objectives, the promotion, support, and enhancement of the Port of Trapani, as well as its infrastructure system and surrounding territory, with particular attention to safeguarding it from speculative practices that could undermine the area's cultural and economic value. This initiative represents a crucial milestone in the city's autonomous development journey, based on active collaboration with institutional bodies such as the Civil Engineering Department for Maritime Works and the Port Authority of Trapani. The consortium aims to consolidate and strengthen synergies between public and private stakeholders to ensure sustainable and long-lasting growth of the port, positioning it as a strategic hub for the economic, social, and cultural development of the territory. The gradual decommissioning of shipyard activities has paved the way for the transformation of the city's northern waterfront, giving rise to a long coastal promenade that runs directly alongside the sea. This new urban axis features the new ferry terminal for hydrofoils, a public building of strategic importance, and a system of floating plazas integrated into the docks dedicated to recreational boating, helping to redefine the relationship between the city and the water in a contemporary way. The promenade traces the city's coastline, extending southward to intersect with the axis that hosts various sports facilities and connects directly to the Salt Pan Urban Park, located a short distance from the urban core. In this context, the redefinition of the waterfront takes on a systemic value, entrusted to a group of new buildings that reconstruct the urban edge and articulate high-quality public spaces, while incorporating functions related to marine scientific research. Among the new urban services planned, the project includes an experimental aquarium and floating residences designed to accommodate researchers and professionals in the field, shaping a new urban ecosystem that brings together landscape, innovation, and scientific culture. This new seafront thus emerges as a complex and multifunctional system capable of activating urban and environmental regeneration dynamics in a strategic portion of the city. The project involves the creation of a ferry terminal, a concept store, a yacht club, and an urban park. 4 distinct but closely interconnected interventions conceived as strategic elements for the regeneration of the port area. Unified by a new stone-paved surface, they form a pedestrian and landscaped pathway that reconnects the buildings with surrounding public spaces. The intervention aims to encourage collective life and social interaction among both residents and the growing number of tourists visiting Trapani by creating new gathering places near the sea. The concept store is conceived as an urban device that reinterprets the notion of public space, organized around a gently sloping ramp that rises from street level to a panoramic terrace. The overall objective of the project is to return to the city a set of new spaces that can host activities and services, transforming the decommissioned port area into an expansive urban park, where open space becomes a key resource for exploring new ways of inhabiting and experiencing the waterfront. In contrast to the regular, compact, and homogeneous urban grid of the 19th century city, the southern part of Trapani is characterized by a fragmented and discontinuous industrial fabric. This area has developed without a clear compositional order or defined settlement principles, creating large voids within the urban structure and disrupting the continuity of the city's overall layout. This fragmented system extends toward the port area, which is itself marked by extensive disused surfaces, infrastructural voids, and natural edges, in direct relationship with the oriented nature reserve of the salt pans of Trapani and Pasico. The industrial fabric historically hosted functions related to salt production and processing, recreational boat building, and sports facilities, including the municipal swimming pool. Today, however, many of these activities are only marginally integrated into the urban context. The project area identified in the Trapani 2050 strategic vision proposes a radical transformation of this part of the city through the gradual decommissioning of shipyard activities and the creation of a major promenade along the coastline. This new pedestrian axis aims to re-establish both a visual and functional connection between the city and the sea, linking the key public interventions planned for the regeneration of the port area. The main objective is to construct a coherent and accessible system of public spaces, capable of reactivating areas currently in a state of suspension and restoring them to a strategic role within the city's envisioned future. The project aims to offer an alternative interpretation of the current condition of Trapani's coastal areas and port system, with the primary objective of promoting social aggregation through urban regeneration. This goal is complemented by the enhancement of the existing natural landscape and the introduction of new services at both urban and territorial scales, capable of triggering virtuous processes of transformation. Particular attention is given to the relationship between the new urban park and the Salt Pan Nature Reserve, an interplay of physical and symbolic continuity that the project seeks to strengthen. The park is conceived as a direct access point to the reserve and as a connective device between the city and the cultural and environmental infrastructure of the salt pans, effectively extending the reach of this landscape system to the edges of the historic city. Numerous projects have been developed in recent years within the graduation workshop, representing an important opportunity to rethink in a systemic way not only the coastal front of the city of Trapani, but also the modes of access and enjoyment of the new Parco delle Saline, conceived as a strategic place between the consolidated urban fabric and the Riserva Naturale Orientata delle Saline di Trapani e Pasico. The reserve, due to its extraordinary environmental, cultural, and productive value, represents one of the most significant and distinctive landscape elements of the entire territory. It is a complex and delicate ecosystem where the presence of the sea and the traditional salt production activities have shaped, over the centuries, a landscape of great charm, combining biodiversity, intangible heritage, and work culture. The reserve is not merely a place to be preserved. It is a living ecological infrastructure that constantly interacts with the city and its future development. From this perspective, the Parco delle Saline becomes a fundamental territorial device designed to ensure gradual, respectful, and qualified access to the protected area. Through a network of pedestrian and cycling paths, observation points, and light facilities for rest and environmental interpretation, the park proposes itself as an accessible public space aimed at both residents and tourists, offering sustainable and conscious experiences of enjoyment. The main objective of the projects is to enhance the salt marsh landscape without compromising its ecological balance, creating conditions for a new form of urban edge livability that fosters the encounter between nature, culture, and community. In this scenario, the relationship between city, park, and reserve takes shape as a continuous landscape and functional continuum capable of regenerating not only physical spaces, but also social relations and identities. The Floating Plain, Palermo 2030. Jacques Rougerie Foundation, 2016, Innovative Architecture for the Sea. A city of the sea, of ports, and of travelers, Palermo has shaped its urban form in close relationship with its territory. The sea, rivers, and mountains, and their interaction have defined a complex landscape marked by both continuity and transformation. This stratification has fostered deep connections between the city's historical layers and its contemporary identity, linking the built environment with its maritime infrastructure, which continues to play a central role today. Currently, the Port of Palermo stands out for its excellence in shipbuilding and port logistics, particularly in the container shipping sector. Alongside the historic old port of La Cala, the city now hosts modern facilities for both freight and passenger traffic, forming a multifaceted and constantly evolving system. Within this context, the project, The Floating Plain, proposes the construction of a new cruise terminal designed to innovatively integrate the operational needs of the port with the city's growing tourism demands. The project is based on the idea of an interactive infrastructure, a multi-level suspended walkway conceived as a vast public pier. This linear element provides both direct access to cruise ships and a visual and physical reconnection with the city, transforming into a panoramic promenade overlooking the sea. The research offers a critical reading of several strategic locations in Palermo, examining them through the lens of infrastructural relationships, both connections and disconnections. Infrastructural disconnection gives rise to urban enclaves, true relational voids that disrupt the continuity of public space and challenge the very idea of the city as a unified organism. In contrast, connectivity enables the formation of interdependent and interacting urban areas, which can be understood through the concept of an urban archipelago, where each island functions as a node within a wider network. Within this framework, the system of new stations along the Palermo railway ring, particularly the Politeama, Porto, and Libertà stations, represents a valuable opportunity to expand and strengthen urban relationships. These are zones deeply characterized by the intersection of the city, public space, and infrastructure, capable of generating new urban centralities and promoting innovative forms of livability. The city is thus reinterpreted as a complex and layered space of relationships, knowledge, exchanges, conflicts, economies, and both material and immaterial forms of production, continuing to serve as the privileged horizon for contemporary urban design strategies. The challenges posed by public urban mobility, due to their inherently multidisciplinary nature, demand a hybrid and cross-cutting approach, one that is able to grasp the intricacies of the contemporary city and anticipate the needs of the future urban condition. Within this framework, metropolitan mobility takes on an added value, no longer seen merely as technical infrastructure, but as an urban device capable of generating new forms of public space and connectivity. In particular, in the context of Palermo's port, several critical issues have emerged that have shaped the design approach. One of the central themes is the proximity to the sea, a condition that calls for a reinterpretation of the relationship between the city and its maritime front, positioning the port not as a separate entity, but as an integral part of the urban system. The port thus becomes a fully fledged element of urban design, charged with new meanings and recognized as one of the keys to unlocking the transformative potential of the coastal edge. Within this scenario, the project explores the possibility of connecting a new cruise terminal to the city, overcoming the physical and functional barriers that have historically kept the two apart. The port is reimagined as an urban extension beyond the limits of maritime jurisdiction, a space that can accommodate public, collective, and cultural functions, reinforcing its role as a generator of urban life. The project focuses specifically on the redefinition of the area between the Porto metro station and the Santa Lucia Pier, one of the points closest to the city's urban fabric. The intervention involves the design of a new cruise terminal capable of establishing a direct connection between the city and the port, two systems traditionally perceived as separate or even in contrast with one another. On one side, the accessible and public urban space. On the other, the port area, a functional and infrastructural enclosure governed by controlled flows and oriented toward the movement of goods and passengers. The aim of the proposal is to transform the cruise terminal into an urban device, one that can reactivate spatial and social relationships, restore continuity to the coastal landscape, and generate new public and collective uses. The terminal thus becomes an intermediate space, a filter between city and sea, opening the port to the city and the city to the port in a renewed and integrated vision of the coastal urban territory. The intervention is conceived as a hybrid and multifunctional building, housing both the new Porto metro station and the new cruise terminal, thus integrating local public transportation and international tourist flows into a single cohesive system. While the metro station is part of Palermo's ring railway, a strategic infrastructure that connects the city's 20th century districts and promotes a sustainable, widespread urban mobility, the cruise terminal is envisioned as an elevated urban device that redefines the relationship between the city and the sea. It does so through a sequence of suspended multifunctional spaces, panoramic terraces, public plazas, offices, shops, restaurants, and leisure areas. This multi-level system provides direct access to cruise ships while also creating a visual and functional reconnection with the city, transforming the pier into a true urban promenade overlooking the sea. Far from merely reorganizing port functions, the project offers Palermo a new coastal urban interface where work, travel, and leisure converge in a contemporary public infrastructure, open, inclusive, and future-oriented. The project is based on a highly technological structural system composed of a sequence of autonomous blocks made up of pillars and stairwells to which suspended floors are attached. The building is elevated on pilatus above the port quay, avoiding any interference with the current container handling activities that continue along the waterfront. This configuration allows for free and flexible use of the interior spaces, promoting the functional adaptability of the building. Special attention has been given to access points, visibility, and traveler safety, as well as the organization of emergency exits, explicitly drawing inspiration from solutions adopted in modern airport terminals. The building is wrapped in a continuous and sinuous shell that defines the building's profile from the metro station exit to the cruise terminal foyer. The facade is not a solid surface, but animated by dynamic openings that create areas of light and shadow, enhancing the perception of movement and guiding travelers toward boarding. The facade structure was designed using parametric design techniques and manufactured through 3D printing with low-impact geopolymer materials. Each triangular module is unique, contributing to the creation of a highly performant architectural envelope that combines energy efficiency, technological innovation, and aesthetic quality. The project also explores energy aspects. The integration of intelligent flooring allows the conversion of the kinetic energy generated by pedestrian flows into electrical energy. Further projects have been developed on the topic of the cruise terminal and the Porto rail ring stop, serving as valuable opportunities to deepen and reflect on the complex relationship between the city and the port. In an era marked by unprecedented environmental, economic, and cultural transitions, coastal areas emerge as paradigmatic spaces of contemporary times. Physical and symbolic thresholds where ecological vulnerability, urban transformations, and demands for spatial justice intertwine. The conference Coastal Territories 2050 seeks to provide a comprehensive theoretical and design framework capable of exploring these domains through action research, adopting a transdisciplinary approach based on three complementary conceptual cores: climate adaptation, reversible infrastructures, and urban transition. The case studies presented, from the Thai Bay of Bandon to Rotterdam and the coastal fronts of Trapani and Palermo, differ in scale, context, and techniques, but share a common methodology. Architectural design is not reduced to form, but serves as a tool for reading, interpreting, and transforming the environment. This reveals an integrated approach that links technical knowledge, ecological understanding, narrative capacity, and political awareness. Such an approach entails taking responsibility toward vulnerable territories and the communities inhabiting them, shifting the project from product to process, from building to infrastructural, cultural, and environmental interface. The projects developed demonstrate how architecture and urban design can operate not only as tools for risk mitigation, but as cultural devices capable of triggering processes of ecological and social regeneration. The use of light, temporary, and adaptive design strategies, the hybridization of production, housing, and public space, and the enhancement of local practices and cultural landscapes outline a new paradigm of coastal living that integrates environmental resilience with territorial inclusion. In this sense, the project is no longer understood as a formal response or technical solution, but as a critical exercise able to construct possible scenarios based on the observation and knowledge of places, communities, and the solid and liquid materials that characterize them. Coastal Territories 2050 thus invites a reconsideration of the role of design in crisis territories, embracing transition not as an exception but as the starting condition of the project, thereby outlining a new operational lexicon for architecture in fragile territories.